Good evening, everybody. My name is Nag Ashwin. I'm a filmmaker, and very honestly, I have no idea how I got here. And so, like, I come from a family of doctors. Like, when I say, I'm like serious doctors. Like, you know, not just my parents. Like, my grandfather was a doctor. His sister was a doctor. My grandmother's sister, a doctor. Their kids were doctors. My mom married a doctor, my mom's sister married a doctor, their parents are doctors. So I'm saying, like, you know, in an ecosystem of like 30 people, I think 28 were doctors, and maybe the other two were engineers, maybe, I don't know. But basically, so from there you can imagine how tough it was or how interesting it was for me to come to be here today. So I mean, you know, when I was a kid and, you know, you go to these family functions, these relatives talk to you, you're not, nobody asked me, beta, you know, what are you going to become? They told me, like, you know, they told me you'll be a doctor, you'll take over, you know, your father's or your mom's things. So I was never sure because, like, you know, doctors and pilots especially, I always thought it was a big deal. Like, you know, you have somebody's life literally in your hand. Like, I mean, the worst thing I can do with a movie, like, even if I make a really bad movie, like, you'll probably get like a headache or something, like, but it's not fatal, you won't die most probably. So, anyway, so I just thought I'll talk to you about, like, maybe 3 choices. You know, you make choices and that's why you are where you are at some points of life. So I'll talk about 3 choices that maybe got me where I am today. And why 3? Because it's just a nice number, like, you know, it's, you know, 3 Dev, 3 Lok, 3 Idiots, whatever. So three reasons why 3 choices why I'm here today. So first choice, let's see, was probably an English exam, maybe in 8th class or something, 8th or 9th class. And you have that paper where you have compositions. You know, there also there are choices. There you can write a letter, or you can write, you know, write about your holiday, this summer vacation. Or there'll be one that is a little more interesting where they leave one line. If you guys, anybody did ICSE, so there'll be one line where, you know, he was walking down and then he heard a bang, ... So you have to finish that and write a composition on it. And usually that was the least popular option because you get the least marks in that because, I don't know, that's how it worked. So I think I took that option at some point, and very surprisingly I did well. I don't know who that teacher was. It might have been somebody called Geeta Shamsundar, but she's one of the main reasons why I'm here. So she gave me like really good marks, like something like 18 or 19 out of 20, which was a huge deal for one of those, you know, I heard a bang behind me sort of compositions. So that triggered off interest in, you know, creative writing, which led to becoming the editor of the school magazines. I used to write random stuff and people used to get emotional sometimes. And I used to feel really good about myself, you know, I'm writing and then people are reacting to it. So then I had to tell my parents, obviously, that I want to be a writer. And they didn't understand what that was. Like, you know, it's not, what does that mean, like a writer? And okay, write, but I mean, after a while, I think they were okay because at least I didn't want to be a painter or something. That's harder to explain. Like, I want to be a painter. Like, so what? Like, I want to paint. So anyway, so I got through an entrance in mass comm. I did mass communication, and so my parents were still telling people, yeah, he's in media, which is just a random word for everything. So he's doing media. So I don't know what media I'm doing, but I was doing media apparently. So that's what happened. And after my graduation, they decided I had to get a degree in filmmaking if I wanted to be a filmmaker. At that point, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I was kind of sure I wanted to be a filmmaker. So they said, you have to do it. And I said, I don't think I can start working. I can assist people. They said, no, a degree is important. You know, without a degree, there's no point. So I said, fine. So I'll do a degree. And then I ended up doing a course at NYFA in the US, which was great because you end up, you know, most of us kind of grow up watching these Hollywood films. And so it felt like something that you understand. So I went, I did that small course. I got a job as an editor, and I started working in the US, making stories with like people named John in it and, you know, Mary in it, like whatever, so a little disconnected. And then there was another choice I had to make, and this choice was thanks to A.R. Rahman, basically. There's a movie called Swadesh, you guys know, and So there's this song where it's like, ye jo desh hai, and mitti ki jo khushboo, he's like so emotional. And I'm sitting in New York and I'm listening to this, and I'm missing home food. I think mostly it's home food, I think. And then I get all patriotic and get Air India window seat or whatever, and then I come back. And then I come back to India, and I wasn't there for very long, but I came back anyway. And now all these relatives that you meet at weddings, they're still there. They're still going to the same weddings. And now they're telling my parents, like, the same people, they're like, what's your son doing? Like, how did you leave him like this? And my parents are still trying to say, no, he's in media. He's doing, he's doing something in media. And they're trying to justify it. And these guys are like, this is the time where all my friends were getting settled, right? There were all these terms like, per annum and take home and all of that was very popular. And I didn't have anything to take home at that point. So there was really nothing I was doing there. So anyway, at that point, my grandmother at that point was like, it's not too late, beta, now also you can do MBBS. I think if I asked her now also, she'll say it's not too late, you can do MBBS. She's eternal optimist. But so anyway, so what happened is what was I saying? Yeah, my grandmother's an eternal optimist. Yeah, she is. So then I was getting a little disillusioned, like, Telugu movies are very different from what I understood or what I expected. And I was trying to write scripts that I thought would fit into the general successful movies that were happening, and very frustrating. It was very entertaining to listen to me pitch scripts to producers in Telugu. Like, I'd be telling them something, they'll be like staring off into space, and it just wasn't working out. And at some point I really wanted to be I just thought, fine, whatever, like, let's be like successful, and that's what everybody wants. And I had this sort of ambition anyway, so I thought, okay, what next? So I got into advertising, and I was kind of good at advertising. I worked in Bangalore at O&M for a while, and that's when this third choice or whatever magically came up in form of a book called Shantaram. If you guys have read it, it's a really fat book. It took me almost a year to read it. So in Shantaram, I don't know, it says a lot of things, but basically one concept in Shantaram, this guy asks about how do you decide whether something is good or bad, because everything's objective, right? You do something, how do you make a decision whether it's a right thing or wrong thing, because it can change from person to person. So the author of Shantaram kind of says, after a lot of explaining over lots of pages, it kind of distills down to him saying, like, if whatever choice you make kind of leads to life, then maybe it's right, and if whatever choice you make leads to death, then probably it's wrong. So that's his idea. It's maybe simplistic, but it seemed to work in my head for a lot of things. So I was working in advertising, and advertising essentially means, like, I am exploiting people's insecurities for whatever reason, for toothpaste, for beer, for cosmetics, Fair and Lovely, whatever. I'm just exploiting people, and I'm using my whatever creativity, so-called creativity, to make people buy stuff and feel a little more insecure or whatever. And that's something. So that's something I didn't really feel fun to be a part of. So anyway, this movie things was going on in the background, and so I thought, what's a great other business option? I remember me and my friend wanted to become businessmen when we were kids. Didn't know what that meant, but so we thought we'll become businessmen. So I thought, well, I'll do something to do with business. So I thought water, water is life, right? So I thought, life, let's see what's happening in the water business. This was 10 years ago. So I started figuring out, like, how to get a permit, and like how people get into the water business. And it is actually very profitable. It's a very profitable industry, only because it's extremely exploitative. The more I learned about it, like literally in a space as big as this stage, you can start a company which bottles water, which all you need to do is have 2 bore wells in it. And there is no limit to how much water you can pump out of the ground. So you can pump out 35,000 liters a day, 50,000 liters a day in a space as big as this. So that's what companies were doing, and they were rebottling them for people or having their own brand. Like Bisleri used to give amazing deals, and so it didn't make sense. Like again, that was leading towards death thanks to Shantaram. So like like you're creating so much waste, you're just you're exploiting things. So it didn't feel right. So anyway, that business wasn't happening. So then I thought of a friend was doing real estate. Real estate sounded exploitative. Everything sounded exploitative. So I was like, what the hell? What am I doing actually? So I realized like, okay, so what am I doing? My parents are like, you're doing media. So I was like, okay, so if I'm doing media, let's get back to where I started from. And let me just write a story. So I was writing all these ideas of what I thought would work. In that weird, frustrated, inspirational sort of space, I just over a weekend wrote a movie, which I didn't expect anybody to produce because I had seen quite a few rejections by then. It was a movie about a guy who kind of went on a journey to the Himalayas to find himself, to really put it very simply. It is a movie about friendship, it is a movie about spirituality, it is a movie about finding yourself. And it was written really fast, like compared to the other scripts that I wrote. It took about barely a week or something to get the basic structure of it, and I told people, okay, bye-bye, I have like some basic cameras, I have some actors, and I'm going to shoot this so that I'll get done with this first movie ka concept, and we'll see what happens after that. And surprisingly, that movie connected to producers, and surprisingly, that movie connected to actors that were mainstream, like not even like new actors, like popular actors, and surprisingly, that movie got made. And surprisingly, that movie became a hit. So that movie, which completely came out of one very honest place or whatever, that movie became a hit. Like this was 4 years ago, where so-called parallel cinema, whatever, didn't exist in Telugu. So that, and the actors in that, or whatever, that kind of kicked forward a sort of a revolution in a lot of new kinds of storytelling. And that. So then I just kind of was trying to understand, like, when I have to make another film, like people keep asking me or kept asking me in between that time, like they ask me now also, like how do you choose a project, or how do you choose your actors, or what are those choices that you have to make. And I think when in that time in between my first and second film, I was just going through some ideas again, obviously, because suddenly now you have a successful film, you'll have pressure to like work with like known actors, or like some producer will come and say, let's set this up with this certain actor or a certain budget. And there's so many temptations, and suddenly you feel, yeah, you could go to the next league or whatever that is. And then somewhere along this, I came across a story of Savitri garu, who I was always a big fan of, this actress. And her story was not a happy story. It wasn't like a victory. It wasn't like Bag Milka Bag where he wins the race, or it wasn't like some Mary Kom, or whatever. It wasn't like any of the biopics that you've seen before. It was a tragedy in a way, and nobody had made a female-centric biopic, so-called female-centric film, forget about a biopic, in South India. So there were again like every reason not to make this film. And there were other opportunities at that point which I could have followed with more mainstream actors. And this movie, so again, I decided like I'm going to start following this for some reason. I don't know why I thought I was ready. I started writing the script. I wrote it, and it became like, at this point, it's like the 6th highest grossing film in US. And we had tickets that were 1/3 the price of a regular Telugu film, so that is $8, and Mahesh Babu's is like $25 or something. So if you just count the number of ticket sales, we are right after Bahubali in the US. So that's how big Mahanati became. And this was a movie that nobody believed in. Like if somebody asked me like, why are you making this? How are you so brave in making this movie? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I have no clue. Like you just believe in something for the right reason. And maybe that's how it works. So anyway, like there's a dialogue in my first film, Yevade, which says, I don't work for the money. I don't work for the money that I get. I get paid for the work that I do, basically. It's nicer in Telugu basically. So it doesn't translate that well. But basically that's what it means. It means that at the end of the day, if you know where your heart's at and you're honest and you can maintain that little bit of objectivity, I think you'll make the right choices. And whatever it is you guys are doing, medicine, engineering, always remember Mr. Shantaram's, like, is it leading towards death or life? Because it does help actually. And even once in a while I go back to these weddings and I meet these relatives there, and now they're like, you know, they have their kids and they're like, beta ek photo le lo with with me. But I mean, more than a photo, I hope they give their kids a chance to follow what they need to do. And thank you.